Hey, welcome back to the Inspire Hope podcast, where we're planting hope for kingdom growth. There's nothing more inspiring than God being at work in people's lives through their stories. We are Rachel and Samuel, and we are the hosts of this podcast.
Hey Rachel, this week we have the privilege to listen to Pastor Matthew's story. Matthew is the pastor of Cremona Country Fellowship and president of Training Leaders International Canada. He and his wife Joanna have 8 children, as he said so far, and live in Water Valley, Alberta. Matthew's mission is to preach the gospel and teach the truth wherever and whenever he can. Above all, he wants people to know that the glory of God is the central point of human existence. Matthew holds a Bachelor of Theology from Living Faith Bible College, a Master of Divinity from Canadian Southern Baptist Seminary, and a PhD from Master Divinity College. A fun fact about Matthew, he also talks about himself in the third person, which he says it's a bit odd.
We will return to share the lessons we learned from the story and offer some application and Bible verses that will help you apply it to your own life.
Hello, this is Dr. Matthew Rowley. I'm glad to be with you today. Today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about trusting in the Lord and some lessons that I've learned about trusting God. Particularly, I want to tell you a story of how He taught me to trust Him. It's funny, God gives us lots of opportunities to trust Him. What do these opportunities to trust look like? Well, they look like problems. In my life, over many years of ministry, we've had many problems. We've had many opportunities to trust. And it's always been a balance or a work to get to a point of balance where we can say, yes, Lord, I trust you. One of my favorite prayers that I pray is, Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief. But the particular time I want to tell you about happened as I was moving to Ontario to pursue my doctoral studies. We had a task ahead of us to move our rather large family out east from Alberta and to find a place to live. And as we looked around, everything we looked at to rent was incredibly expensive. For our family, it would have cost $2,000 a month to live, and this was a number of years ago now. So as we looked around, we realized we couldn't afford to rent in Hamilton, in the town that we were going so that I could study. We saw, though, that further out, you could actually buy a house for relatively little money. And by that method, we would be able to afford to live while I was doing my studies. So we began to pursue this idea. Now, there was already a fair bit of faith involved in pursuing this idea because we had exactly $0 in our bank account, which meant we had no down payment. We had no ability to fund this crazy endeavor. I was a student after all and had spent many years working on my studies and paying for those. But we prayed and we decided to trust God. So we got in touch with a realtor out there and we began to look at properties. We used that wonderful website, realtor.ca, and then called a realtor and had him go and look at different properties on our behalf. We couldn't afford really to go and look ourselves. As we were looking, we put in offers on 4 different houses, and one after one, the offers were rejected. We had had a firm budget limit of what we could afford, and we were trying desperately to make a way to make it work, but no matter how many times we tried, it seemed like because of the lag time between the internet and the realtor and trying to set everything up, every time we put in an offer, the house had already sold or our offer was rejected. It began to be a very frustrating time for us. We started to question God and ask why. Why are you not just allowing us to buy a house? We know it's your will for us to be out there. Why wouldn't you do it? There was frustration involved. There was exhaustion involved. And we were questioning God. The opportunities to trust Him that were coming up seemed to be more along the lines of somehow we must have failed or not heard His voice. Now, of course, later on, we went and visited these places where we had made the offers. And these beautiful houses that we thought were quite nice were indeed okay. But the one that we liked the most was across the street from a park that was full of needles, used needles, and was incredibly dangerous area of town. We would never have been able to let our children out the door to play for fear of what they might discover or what might happen to them. It was right on a busy road where cars were whistling by at high speeds. All of that we couldn't see from the lovely pictures on the website, but God knew ahead of time. And so his answer for us as we asked him to get us this house was, no, I have something else in mind, and my way is a better way. Well, after 4 failed attempts, after all these doubts and asking why, we decided that the only answer was to fly out to Ontario, find a house, make an offer, and get things settled. So we used the last of our money, and we flew to Ontario. We stayed in a bed and breakfast, which was quite nice, and we met with our realtor, who was a Christian fellow of Dutch Reform background, and we asked him to arrange a number of showings. So the next day, we set out to see 9 properties. Well, by the time we got in the vehicle in the morning, 7 had already sold, and the 2 that we looked at were not really that great. They weren't what we were looking for. They could be made to work, but they would have been hard for our large family. And again, we were feeling a little bit frustrated. We were asking, God, why? Well, the realtor said, you know what, we're driving by this little town of Waterford, and I have a friend who's got a house listed here. Why don't we just take a quick look at that? And we pulled into a beautiful house that had just what we were looking for, that had just enough space, that had a lovely fenced backyard, that was in a little town of 5,000 people where I could look out my front window and see a farmer's field. It was peaceful, it was quiet, it had all that we were looking for. But it was too much money. It was exactly $17,000 more than the max that the mortgage broker had said we could afford. So the realtor said, why not? Let's make an offer and see what happens. And we did. We made an offer, and it was rejected. We made another offer, slightly higher, and they came back at us with another one. And it was exactly $5,000 more than we could possibly afford in any world. So we prayed, and we asked God to show himself strong, and I talked to the mortgage person, and he said, we can make it work. We were overjoyed. We were elated. We were so excited. And then we woke up to a great problem. We needed, in 2 days, before we flew home, a down payment. This involved $25,000 of money. And remember, I told you we had $0 in our bank account. Well, we were feeling a little bit despondent. But we decided that, you know what? We'll have to just pray, and even if we don't end up getting a house, we've never been to Niagara Falls. Why don't we drive down to Niagara Falls? So we took a trip down there and saw the falls, and as we came back, we saw a chipmunk. Now, funny enough, many years before, there had been a fellow that I was talking to, and he was trying to figure out an issue in his life. He was trying to figure out how many classes to take in college. And he'd seen 2 chipmunks and felt that this was the Lord saying 2. Now, somebody that I was talking to with him at the time kind of mocked that and laughed at that and said, really, God doesn't speak through chipmunks. And at the time I'd said, you know, God is able to communicate in a way that we understand. And as we were walking along, this chipmunk came out, sat up in the middle of the road, and looked right at Joanna and I. We looked at that chipmunk and we busted out laughing because for us it reminded us of that time when God spoke through a chipmunk. And believe it or not, it gave us comfort and confidence that, you know what? God knows what's going on in our lives and he can help us through this problem. We prayed. We talked to the normal people, our parents, etc. They didn't have the money. But we prayed, and out of nowhere, somebody showed up and said, I'll give you the money. To this day, I'm not allowed to say who, because they did not want any credit. But in 2 days, we had $25,000 sitting in our bank account. We made the down payment. We bought the house. We were able to move to Ontario. And amazingly enough, when 2 years later we needed to move back to Alberta, we were able to make a profit on the house, and the Lord used that to get us the house we're in today. God is able, and you can trust him. It doesn't matter how big or how small. When it comes to provision, he's very good at it. I grew up with a dad who's a great example of faith, and he often quoted to me Psalm 37:25. I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. This is how I've sought to live, not in perfect confidence, many times saying, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief, but always seeking to trust God and believe that he has the power to do mighty things in you. He will give you opportunities to trust. They will look like problems, but when we see what he's doing, when we rest in him, when we turn our eyes on Jesus, we will always find the answer, the hope that we were looking for. I hope you're blessed today.
Hey, Rachel, listening to Matthew's story. A little background is that when I was in Cochrane, Alberta, I was doing my master's. Matthew was working, I believe, on his PhD. So we were going to the same school at that time, and I was a youth pastor at the same church that he was attending, and I remember his little kids. I was their youth pastor, so we had a good relationship. But when it comes for him to move to Ontario, the big step they have to make to go and there and find a house for him to study and do his PhD was a huge step of faith, as he was saying in the story, where he has to trust the Lord. As I was listening to his story, it reminded me of my big move to Canada, how God has to be the one making the move. Just like I can't remember which verse says it, like if God is not building the house, whoever built it in vain. Our job is to take the step of faith, but God is the one that's doing the work, right? Just like when he called Abraham in Genesis chapter 12, Abraham would not have become a great nation if he hasn't taken the step of faith. So Matthew decided, okay, that's it. I have to go to Ontario. I have to take a look and see. Because as he said in his story, I know, God, it is your will. Why am I not getting the house? Why are you not helping us? But God wants him to move. The pictures you are seeing, you see beautiful houses. You don't see what's on the streets. You don't see the needles. You don't see how the cars are driving so fast. You don't see how your family is not gonna be safe in this neighborhood. You don't see that in the pictures. I want you to move. But at that time, let me tell you, at that time, you don't like it. It's like, how can you just give me a house? You know I want to be there. Just give me a house. And God is saying, slow down. I want you to come and see why I'm not giving you this house that you see in the picture that you love. You like this house, right? Yeah, but it's not good for you. You need to come and see. And that's the big step of faith. Now, okay, God is moving us. We have $0 in our bank account. That's the biggest one. But we need to move, and I need to do my PhD. I have a large family, and I need to find a house, which I don't know where I'm going to find the down payment. He took the step of faith and went to Ontario, where he had to look and see for himself why God was not giving him the house that he wanted.
Yeah, there's so many verses that are coming to mind right now, and stories in my own life where I think we all have those moments where we're tested, because that's where we learn to have that dependency on the Lord. The passage that I've been working on memorizing is in Philippians 4, when Paul is thanking the Philippians for paying attention to his needs. Philippi was under great persecution, and so they had little, and yet they still chose to give to Paul. He says, I rejoiced in the Lord greatly that once again you renewed your care for me. You were in fact concerned about me, but lacked the opportunity to show it. I don't say this out of need, for I have learned to be content in whatever circumstances I have. I know both how to have a little, and I know how to have a lot. In any and all circumstances, I have learned the secret of being content, whether well-fed or hungry, whether in abundance or need. I am able to do all things through him who strengthens me. We use those verses of like, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me for everything and anything, which is still applicable. But it's in the context of our needs that he's talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Matthew didn't have anything left in his account. They needed the $25,000, and they chose to turn to the Lord, who is the all-sufficient one, who has everything that they need to find the answer, not rather than trying for a massive loan that they can't afford on top of a mortgage that they could barely afford, or whatever other avenue they would have gone. Instead, they prayed and they waited on the Lord for that. It reminds me, I was a student at the time. I had finished Bible college and was going to go into nursing. And so I had a semester and a summer off, and I could not find work. My plan was to work, save up, and then be able to go to school. And all summer, there was nothing. I was applying to all these jobs and nothing would come in. But every week, $50 would come from somewhere. I volunteered at a VBS, Vacation Bible School, and they gave my brother and I $50 for speaking. And then my grandma was sick and I was taking care of her a fair amount, and she would give me $50 here and there. And every time it got down to about $5, another $50 would come in. And it just made no sense. I was down to $0. And then a job finally called me and said, "Hey, can you work?" And I'm like, "Yes, please."
Yes, please hire me.
It's such a small thing in comparison, but that's something I've carried with me. Remember then. Remember when you had nothing and I gave you something. Learn to be content in the Lord. He'll supply those needs because he's with you. Somebody had pointed out Hebrews 13, verse 5, and it says, where we say, "I will never leave you or forsake you." If you look at the first part of that verse, it says, "Your life should be free from the love of money. Be satisfied with what you have, for he himself said, I will never leave you or forsake you." And then it says, the next verse, "Therefore, we may boldly say, the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. What can man do to me?" So if the Lord is with us always, then he knows the needs that we have.
Mm-hmm.
He goes before us, so he knows ahead of time what we need.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's just waiting to say, hey, do you notice me? Are you ready? You ready for what I got for you? Because it's going to be pretty cool.
I like Psalm 37, verse 3 and 4 says, "Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and enjoy safe pasture. Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart." He will give you the desires of your heart because you spend time with him. His desire become my desire. We are in sync. It's a relationship, right? If you're not pouring into that relationship, it won't last. You can still say, "Lord, I trust you," but the way I'm acting doesn't show that I trust him because I'm not spending time with him. I'm just trying to do, I trust my bank account. I can do it, or I can take a loan. I can do that. I don't need to check with him, right? When I was growing up in Haiti, my mom taught me a Creole song. It's a hymn that basically says, "God owns the universe. He has diamonds, he has gold, he owns everything. And he is my daddy. I need to ask him." And Jesus says in the gospel, "Each father that the son asks for bread, that he will give the son a rock." So if your father will not do that, your heavenly father, he knows how much you want. And he knows how to give you good gift. Like James would say, every good and perfect gift comes from God. So when you delight in him, when you trust in him, he will give you the desire of your heart. Matthew's desire is to, when he sees all these pictures of these houses that he wants, then for some odd reason, every time it seems like either the house is sold, the internet is slow, something happened, and it's nothing is working the way he wanted to, and he's getting frustrated because like, why God? And then God was like, "I have a house for you. I know where I'm taking you. What I want you to do is to believe that I can take you where I want to take you." For instance, I was just doing some research on Google, thinking about the word trust. It says to trust in the Lord means more than believing in who he is and what he says. The word here for trust can also mean to have confidence in. Having confidence in something means having an assurance that leads to action, right? So Matthew eventually just said, "Okay, I'm gonna go to Ontario. I'm gonna take a look." And when he take the steps, yes, you have faith, but you have to walk. Okay, it's action. You show me a mango tree, I will identify that mango tree by its fruit. They are fruits. They are step. When you say you have faith, you trust in the Lord, and the Lord says, "Go," you go. You take the step of faith and you move. You don't know what's gonna happen, but you know that God says go, and you go.
Yeah, thinking about when you said trust is confidence, it makes me think of 1 John 5:14-15 that says, "Now this is the confidence we have before him. Whenever we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. And if we know that he hears whatever we ask, we know that we have what we have asked him for." Which is perfect for Matthew's sake in this, that he knew God wanted him to go to the school. He knew he wanted to go get the doctorate. So he could confidently go before him and say, "God, I know that you want this. So you need to provide for me. Can you please help us with this?" In full assurance that he will, but just showing them where. The Lord will give you opportunities to trust him. Matthew says, these might look like problems, but when we turn our eyes on Jesus and rest in him, we will always find the answer and hope we were looking for. I love how he said that.
Yeah, yeah. You know, my wife Leah, she's an artist. If you want to check her out, you can just Google her, leahbernardart.com. One thing that's fascinates me is when she's in the studio and she's working, she will have her headset on, okay, and she's painting. I will come and stand behind her. As the good husband I am, I will not tell her that's a waste of time, okay? I don't want to say that. But when I'm seeing it's a waste of time, it's a waste of energy, it's a waste of paint. But she's dancing and she's painting. She has a picture in mind that I don't have, right? So I look at it and I was like, oh my goodness, just throw that thing away. That's worth nothing, right? But I'm not going to say that because that's going to discourage her. And then I will walk back in and I'm just like, whoa, that's what you were working on. I did not see that. I could not see that, but you could because you had that picture in your mind and you know where you're going. And often, like God is working in us, we are just seeing the little piece of the puzzle. We're not seeing the big picture. We're just seeing that little piece. And we're kind of like, why? Why do I have to go through that? Why do I have to go through why? But God is saying, just wait, just wait. I'm putting the pieces together. Just wait. I'm doing the mountains. I'm doing the tree. I'm painting. Just wait. I am transforming you. I'm making you into the woman, into the man that I want you to be. But the process, it's not gonna be easy. The lessons that you're gonna learn while you're walking through that journey, there will be others who needs to learn that lesson, but you're gonna be the agent that teaches them that lesson.
Yeah.
But we don't see that, right? We don't see all the pieces of the puzzles. But God already sees them. Not only sees the pieces, he sees the big picture.
Yeah.
What we are seeing is like you put a little piece here, and it seems like it takes you 5 years to put another piece, 10 years before you put another piece. I just want it done now. Can you just get it done, right? And God is saying, no. Enjoy the journey, enjoy the process. Not easy, but enjoy the process because you need to learn through that journey before I can move you to another level.
Yeah.
Okay, keep your eyes on Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith. Keep your eyes on him. Troubles will come, but keep your eyes on him.
Yeah. And be willing to look for it in different ways. Like, Matthew said that he tried reaching out to family and friends and they couldn't afford it, but it came from some other person.
Yeah.
That little glimmer of that chipmunk that caught their attention.
And that's when you know it's God's doing it.
Totally, because it's random and like it wouldn't make sense to other people. And yet it's such a treasured gift that it's like, what? Like,
yes.
What is that?
Yes.
It's funny. And some people, are like, okay. But actually, when I came back from Haiti, I got really sick the month after. And it was before they found out I had celiac. And so I was going through this testing. I lost 20 pounds. I was so sick. And every morning I would look out and this cardinal would fly into the yard for maybe 30 seconds to a minute and fly out again. And it was every single morning. And I just, eventually I kept feeling like, God, you're doing this to show me you're with me.
Yeah.
You're with me every morning. Great is your faithfulness. And it happened for months. And then I didn't see it again. And so every time I see a cardinal, it reminds me of that time with the Lord going, yeah, I am weak, but you are strong and you're with me through this trial. And it's just a beautiful touch of his love that he uses any and all circumstances for that.
Like, for instance, when Elijah was in the cave and hungry, what did God use to feed him? A bird. which the Jews for them will be an unclean bird, but God used a bird to feed that guy, right? Like Matthew said that God speaks to us in ways that we can understand. Okay, maybe some people are expecting an angel or a big movement, and even in that Elijah story, there was an earthquake. God was not in the earthquake. There was a fire. But there was a whisper. God speaks to us in ways that we can understand, and that's when it is Him doing it, and nobody else can take credit. Because if like for instance Matthew's parents or friends and say, "Yo, yeah, I can give you 10 grand or 5 grand," and he collect 25 grand, God can still use that, right? But that will make you feel like, yeah, God used it, but He used so and so to do it. And God wants to teach him that I'm not gonna use so and so. I'm gonna be the one doing it. And the person who's gonna give you that money, he's not even gonna take credit. I don't want you to tell people so and so gave that money. Don't even give credit to it. It's just like we have angels around us. God is using angels to protect us and to bless us. We don't even know it. And that's when you said, "Yeah, great is your faithfulness. It's only you. Yeah, it's only you. Yeah, yeah. I can't say anything. I can't take the credit. It's you. I know it's you."
Which is so fun because it just like spits praise out of our
Yes.
mouths, which is exactly what we're supposed to be doing.
Yes.
Glory goes to God, and in those neat, weird ways that He works, it's just wow. Okay, thank you. You've got this.
and and you know and this is why, like, you will hear people, even at church or prayer meeting, they just like raise their hands and going crazy, and people got look at them and say, "Oh, whoa, you think you are the most spiritual?" No, it's not that. It's like what they've been through.
Yeah.
They can't stop dancing. Like David, he couldn't stop himself dancing in front of the ark. He couldn't. Like, his wife was like, "No, you people are making no. I just couldn't stand." Like, when I think of my life, how God rescued me from that earthquake in Haiti that kills in less than a minute 300,000 people, where I was, approximately 500 people were buried alive. I walked out only dust on my face.
Yeah.
I can't stop praising Him. I can't stop raising my hand and said, "Hallelujah, it is all you."
Yeah.
There are stuff that happens in your life. When you look back, you kind of like, yeah, it's no, no. It's not because I was smarter. It's not because I was holier. It's not because you were pleased with me. No. It was all you, man. Yeah, it's all you. Yeah, I know. Can't take the credit. It's all you.
And remember, God usually works in the 11th hour. So Matthew had 2 days, and that money finally came in. God works our patience so lovingly to say, I'm just going to sit on this one for a little bit. Let's just wait this out and see what you do. And then get ready, because I'm going to blow your mind. It's like, okay.
He's not in a rush.
No.
We are the one rushing. He's not. Kind of like, yeah, I know where the money is coming. I'm bringing the money.
Yeah.
But you can't see it. I'm bringing him.
Yeah.
Right? Like, even we're gonna finish, but there's in Isaiah chapter 6, there's that story with King Uzziah just died, which means that Israel is ripe for another king to come and destroy the country, put them in slavery. Everybody's going crazy. They don't know what to do. Chaos around. And Prophet Isaiah went to the temple. And there, what he saw the true king seated, which means, because a king who is expecting other nations to come would not be sitting. Okay, will not be seated. They will be pacing around in worry, like thinking of strategies and all that. But God is seated on His throne, high and lifted up, which means that He is in control. He's not in a worry. I know what I'm gonna do. I know I hold the whole universe in my hands. I hold your life. And that's what Isaiah saw. He saw the true king seated high and lifted up. And God revealed in the midst of that situation, in the passage, Isaiah chapter 6, you don't see God talking about other nations coming and put Israel into slavery. You don't see God talking about King Uzziah died and blah, blah. You don't see any of that. God shows him that who I am. Trust me. Rely on me. I got you. And God gave him a different perspective. While everybody else is going crazy, Isaiah saw the true king, the one who is in control. And that's our life. The world is going crazy, but keep our eyes on Jesus, the true King who has everything under control.
Amen. Thank you so much for joining us at Inspire Hope. If this podcast has inspired you and added value to your life, would you mind leaving a review and recommending this podcast to your friends and family? It would mean a lot to us. Would you like to share your story with us? Email us at inspirehopepodcast@gmail.com. Have a great day, everyone. And remember, your story can inspire someone today, too. Till next time.